good morning, everyone. Thank you for all joining us. We appreciate the insights you'll help provide us. Mayor, it's great to be back in Hackensack, and you know, Hackensack has now become the medical epicenter of the state of New Jersey, and that's among the many things that Hackensack is doing. And so we appreciate your leadership, and we appreciate you being with us today. I was a mayor, so I know it's one of the toughest jobs in America. A lot to do. Everybody's got something to say to you, and everybody's got a peace of mind to give you. So we appreciate you being here with us today. I am very happy to have my colleague in the House of Representatives, Congressman Gottheimer, who is a real champion on these issues and is someone who has proven himself to be able to get things done. As someone who served in the House of Representatives that has 435 members, you need 218 votes to get something done. Congressman Gottheimer has understood that and navigated and been the architect of many successful initiatives, so we're always thrilled to have him with us in a common cause. To President Garrett, thank you for hosting us again. When the Congressman and I were thinking about where would we host this roundtable, we wanted it to be in a healthcare center, because this is a healthcare issue, and it should be viewed in that regard. We could have done many different forums in different locations, but we really said we need to have New Jerseyans, and for that fact Americans, think of mental health as exactly that, as a healthcare issue. And so we appreciate you hosting us and the incredible work that is going on here on this and so many other critical issues to our state. Today we'll hear from students and parents and counselors and experts in the field how mental health issues are impacting our youth. We are in a moment that, I cannot stress this enough, is critical when it comes to the mental health challenges facing our young people. In fact, if you pick up any newspaper, or more likely if you open your social media feed, you will see story after story about this public health crisis and its devastating toll. Whether it's a rise in eating disorders, anxiety, depression, or in the worst and most tragic cases, the loss of young people from suicide, we know that this growing crisis started long before the pandemic. However, there's no doubt that every single one of these issues has been exacerbated by the isolation, the lack of time with peers, the closing of schools, and their associated activities, just to name a few. Now, it can be difficult to talk about mental health. I come from a generation that didn't talk about it enough. I am encouraged by the openness and bravery of this generation in removing the stigma surrounding mental health and bringing it into a light that was forced into the darkness. It's an issue that first requires individuals to find inner courage, and then requires them to find the language to talk about what's going on inside, which is easier said than done. Part of why it's so important that we come together today is because hearing stories from others can encourage the next person to share, bringing down the walls that divide us. It starts to make it okay to say, hey, I'm having a hard time, and I don't feel like myself. I need help. As I said before, when I was growing up, and even when my children were growing up, we didn't do a good enough job of that. This sea change of openness is a very powerful tool in addressing mental health. According to the National Institute for Mental Health, nearly 1 in 5 U.S. adults live with a mental illness. The National Alliance on Mental Health, now I'm a representative here, has concluded that 1 out of every 6 kids between the ages of 6 and 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. And right here in New Jersey, we have 72,000 children aged 12 to 17 who suffer from depression. It's so widespread in our schools and in our communities that late last year, the United States Surgeon General called youth mental health a quote-unquote crisis. A crisis that from 2019 to 2021 led children's hospitals across the nation to report a 45% rise in cases of self-injury and suicide among children ages 5 to 17. A crisis that just a few months ago was front and center at a roundtable I hosted with Congressman Pascrell and Carney to discuss pandemic learning loss. At that time, we were talking about learning loss and how do we overcome and make sure that we make our students whole. Speaker after speaker shared with us that students weren't just having problems with their academics. Because of the pandemic, parents, teachers, and counselors all say they saw a rise in anxiety and depression in their kids. So taken together, when we zoom out and see how numbers backed up by personal stories, we see just how many people are impacted with mental health concerns. Mental health is just like our physical health, and equally important. It must be treated as such. And when we look at it this way, we can really make change. Last year, Congresswoman Bonnie Wasson-Coleman and I introduced the Pursuing Equity in Mental Health Act. The bill would address the growing issue of suicide and mental health facing young people, particularly in disadvantaged communities with unequal access to mental health treatment both before and after the pandemic. So we're thrilled to hear what you're doing in Per Family. I'm proud to say that just a few weeks ago, the Senate Finance Committee, where I sit, has a discussion draft to address mental health, and it included my bipartisan School Behavioral Health Incentive Act. This bill would support states in developing initiatives inside schools that address the behavioral health needs of students. When we open up our discussion, I'm looking forward to hearing from students like Gabriela, Javier, Elijah, Liam, who can tell us about what's going on in their classrooms and what solutions and resources have helped them along the way. Gabriela, Javier, Elijah, and Liam, I want to thank you all for being here today, for sharing your stories, and for being beacons of light to your peers who may be going through similar things and will know they're not alone. Last thing I want to say before turning it over to Congressman Gottheimer is that mental health is not a monolith. People are not a monolith. And often one-size-fits-all solutions are simply band-aid proposals that don't get at the heart of the issue. It's why I've been so frustrated that after a horrific killings of gun violence we've seen in the last few weeks, that there are those who point to mental health and call it a day. Of course, mental health is part of that equation, particularly in the death and the suicide in which a gun is involved. That universe of gun violence is definitely something that is the basis of mental health. But I also want to make it crystal clear. Mental health challenges exist all around the world, yet it is only the United States where we see the massive volume of mass shootings taking innocent lives year after year. While we certainly know that mental health issues can sometimes be part of that equation in mass shootings, the root cause, in my mind, is the unfettered access to weapons, especially killing machines like the AR-15, high-capacity magazines, which are about high-capacity killing. You don't need 50 and 100 rounds to go hunting at the end of the day. So let us not conflate the issue of addressing and implementing common-sense gun laws with pressing concern of the youth and their mental health crisis. These are two distinct issues from my perspective. So again, thank you all for joining us in this critical conversation. And with that, as I said before, let me turn to my colleagues. If you need a champion to be with you on the other side of the Capitol to get things done, couldn't have somebody better than Congressman Dyer.
Thank you.